So word is CJ Wallace spilled some tea that left a lot of folks stunned. According to what's being whispered, Faith Evans may have walked in on her then-husband Stevie J and Diddy in a situation that was way too intimate to explain away. What's got people even more confused is that apparently she didn't say a word or make a move. Some are even saying she might have been pressured to keep quiet, possibly even blackmailed. Now look, that sounds like a lot, right? But once you start connecting the dots, the story starts to feel a little less far-fetched. We already know that Faith and Stevie's marriage raised eyebrows from the jump. Add in Stevie's longtime loyalty to Diddy, his ties to Bad Boy, and the very public mess they all seem to be tangled in. It's not hard to imagine that something might have gone down behind the scenes, especially now that Diddy's being accused of keeping explicit recordings of his inner circle and using those to control people around him. If those allegations are even partly true, it makes you wonder, could Faith have been one of those people who saw something she was never supposed to see? And when you factor in how protective she's always been of her son, CJ, it's wild to even think he might have known this whole time. Some say he's been holding back out of respect for his mother, or maybe out of fear of what might come with telling the truth. Either way, it's clear that people close to Diddy are starting to feel the weight of years of silence. And if this rumor is even scratching the surface, then we might just be watching the beginning of something way deeper unraveling. So, why would CJ be exposing Diddy and Stevie J like that? Well, maybe it's his time to get revenge, and he is not sparing Faith either. This is bigger than some DL stuff happening behind closed doors. It's about his dad. If you ain't know, CJ has been making some comments lately that got people raising their eyebrows about Faith and her ties to Diddy too. Word is, CJ feels like his mom might have betrayed Big, and that Diddy may have had a role in that betrayal. Now, CJ's never really been one to put everything out there, but folks close to him say he's never believed the official story about how Biggie died. He's always suspected that Diddy had a hand in it, and that Big was surrounded by people who didn't have his best interest, even some who were right there in his house. Now, fast forward to 2018, remember when Faith married Stevie J out of nowhere? CJ was clearly upset about it. He didn't even get a heads up. Like, he literally found out with the rest of us on social media. And let's not forget, Stevie J is CJ's godfather. That made things even weirder. Now here's where it connects. Stevie J wasn't just some random. He was tight with Diddy for decades. He was behind a lot of Bad Boy's sound back in the day. And there have been rumors for years that Stevie was involved in some of Diddy's private parties, the kind that people are now talking about in the lawsuits. When the feds hit Diddy's spot in March, Stevie was actually found staying at one of his houses. That's how close they were.
You're hanging out with Diddy in his mansion in Miami, and Homeland Security rushes in while you're there.
While I'm there, Dolo.
You're there by yourself.
Yeah.
So when CJ says Big was betrayed by people close to him and then sees his mom marry someone like Stevie, someone from Diddy's inner circle, it's not hard to see why people think he's trying to call out certain folks without naming names. And it doesn't end there. Some people have even thrown CJ into the rumor mill, saying his own experiences growing up around Diddy and Stevie might have affected him personally. It's all speculation, but the connections got folks talking for a reason. So now people are starting to ask, did Diddy push Faith Evans into marrying Stevie J to keep her quiet about Biggie's death? Was she being blackmailed, or was she just moving slick the whole time and playing both sides? Well, CJ did recently give a tribute to his dad that had a lot of love behind it. But behind the scenes, there's been talk that CJ has been distancing himself from Faith. According to the rumors, it started around the time people began digging back into old stories about Biggie's death and questioning how much Faith might have actually known. Some folks believe Faith was tighter with Diddy than most people realized, and the theory is she might have known that Biggie wasn't just a random act, that it was planned. It's been said that Big didn't even want to go to LA at that time. He knew it was risky, especially after what happened to Pac, but Diddy kept pressuring him to go anyway.
Why the hell would you rent studio time at LA for him to finish your album when in fact you got your own studio daddy's house? Let's keep it a buck. Let's stop this bullshit, man.
Kirk Burroughs paints a similar picture.
He may not have wanted to go to London, but was talked into it. First time ever a rapper of your stature getting this treatment, that would be something he would be interested in doing.
And to take it even further, Jaguar Wright has claimed that Diddy told Faith straight up that Biggie wasn't gonna make it back that night.
Diddy told her he was gonna get Biggie. She knew it was gonna happen. She was purposefully not by her husband's side that night.
Now add in the fact that Faith was close to both Diddy and Stevie J, and still hasn't said a word against Diddy even with everything coming out, and it starts to feel real suspicious. Fans have been noticing that CJ doesn't really mess with Faith publicly anymore. He barely posts about her, hasn't shown her love online in years, and when he does mention her, it's super surface level, nothing deep, no real affection. And then there's Stevie J's role in all this. Jaguar Wright pointed out how strange that relationship was from the jump. She said Faith and Stevie never made sense, just like Faith and Biggie didn't make sense either. According to her, Faith was never really making choices on her own. She was being used by Diddy. Jaguar even claimed that Diddy used Faith as a pawn to help get both Pac and Biggie out the way so he could keep control of everything, including the money and the music. But let's talk about Faith and Biggie because that relationship never really added up. Even Faith herself said in her book that they were never really a couple like that, and that Big was out here doing his thing with other women the whole time. Now, does that mean Faith had a hand in Biggie's death? Not necessarily, but it does make folks wonder about how deep her ties were to Diddy and what she really knew about his plan to get Biggie and even Tupac out of the picture. So let's back it up. In 1993, Faith moved to LA and started singing backup for Al B. Sure, that's when she popped up on Diddy's radar. And get this, after one studio session, Diddy signed her on the spot. Yup, just like that. She didn't even have a full demo out, but he made her the first female artist on Bad Boy Records. That right there had people raising eyebrows. Like, what really happened behind those studio doors? Faith even told the story herself. She said she asked Diddy if she could tweak the arrangement on a track, added her little harmonies and all, and the man came out and was like, "Wanna sign with me?" And just like that, the deal was closed.
I asked him, "Mr. Puff, you mind if I change it around a little bit?" And I did, and I added all my arrangements and harmonies, and when I came out, he asked me, did I want to sign his new label?
Fast forward to 1994. Faith meets Biggie at a photo shoot, and just weeks later, they're married. Wild. At the same time, she's still grinding, writing for Mary J. Blige's My Life album, working with a young Usher, and cooking up her debut album. Then in 95, Faith drops Faith, her first album, and it blows up, platinum status. Hits like You Used to Love Me and Soon as I Get Home were everywhere. Then in 1996, Faith and Biggie had their son, CJ, but by then, things were already messy. Biggie was cheating left and right, Lil' Kim, groupies, you name it. And the rumor is, Faith clapped back by linking up with Tupac. That one move allegedly dropped her right in the middle of the East Coast versus West Coast war, and we all know how that ended. Two of the greatest rappers gone way too soon, and still so many unanswered questions. Tupac was gunned down in Vegas in September 96. 6 months later, March 9th, 97, Biggie was in LA, and that's when Faith really started opening up about how weird Diddy was acting. In a New York Times interview, Faith said Puff started getting real controlling after Biggie passed, like making her go tanning every other day. Not for her, for him. Faith said, Puff used to walk me to the tanning salon every other day because I was pale, and he wanted me to look glamorous all the time. And get this, right after Biggie's funeral, Diddy was already talking about getting her on stage to perform I'll Be Missing You with him and Sting at the MTV Awards. Faith said she was still deep in grief, didn't want to do it, but Diddy was like, "You're not about to mess up my moment." Her words. She said she even tried crying on the phone, but Diddy pushed until she gave in. And that moment, that's when the whispers really got loud. Folks started suspecting Diddy may have known Biggie's death was coming, or worse, that he had a hand in it. Because let's not forget, Biggie didn't even want to be in LA. Diddy's the one who kept pressuring him to go, even though tensions were high after Pac. Now, Biggie's own mama wasn't fully sold on Diddy's love for her son. In her memoir, Valletta Wallace literally said, "I believe Sean loved my son after he was dead." She was telling Christopher from the jump, do not trust Sean. And while she never outright named Diddy in her 2020 Breakfast Club interview, she made it very clear she still wants to snatch up some of the people who were around Biggie when he passed. Like, she said it with her chest. "I still want to strangle them."
Some of some of his associates, I still want to strangle them.
Now back to Faith. She's hinted over the years that Diddy switched up after Biggie passed, became real controlling, real strange. But let's be honest, she never really cut him off. In fact, she stayed pretty close, kept working with him, praised him publicly like everything was all good. That's interesting, considering everything that was going on. Then, fast forward to 2018, and boom, out of nowhere, Faith suddenly marries Stevie J in Vegas. Faith and Stevie, Mr. Love and hip-hop himself. TMZ dropped the T in Chile. Nobody knew that was happening happening? Not a soul. Their families, clueless. Friends, shocked. Faith was supposed to be in LA packing for a trip to London. Stevie, filming in ATL. And suddenly they're exchanging vows in Sin City? TMZ's sources said even their kids were upset, especially Biggie's son, CJ Wallace. And let me remind you, Stevie J is CJ's godfather. Insiders claim Stevie rushed the wedding so fast because he knew if Faith had time to think or tell people, they would have shut it down. And honestly, that level of pressure sounds a lot like Diddy's playbook. The manipulation combined with the impulsive moves and control is uncanny. And here's where it gets really eyebrow-raising. Stevie's been one of Diddy's loudest defenders even after the feds pulled up on Diddy. He went on TMZ saying, "I ain't never seen my man do nothing shady," then had the nerve to come for 50 Cent, called him an Uncle Tom for criticizing Diddy. And here's the gag. Folks are now wondering how much influence both Diddy and Stevie had over CJ Wallace growing up, and why Faith allowed that kind of access to her son, especially when she had to have seen and heard what Diddy was really like behind closed doors. Cause let's not act like the rumors weren't swirling. There's clips of Diddy chilling with CJ like everything was all good. But knowing what we know now about Diddy's sketchy behavior, especially with young people in his circle, it's giving suspicious. Diddy stepped in like a father figure after Biggie died, and Faith was right there, part of that inner circle. She had to know something, and yet CJ stayed close to Diddy, even without Faith around sometimes. So now people are asking if Faith just trying to protect her son in a dangerous male-dominated industry, or was she playing along to keep her career afloat? And what about those whispers that she knew about the plan to take Biggie out before it even happened? Here's what we can say about Big's passing though. Even though it's been decades, the way this whole thing went down still don't sit right with a lot of folks. And when you really dig into the details, it opens up so many questions about the people who were closest to him, especially Diddy and Faith. So here's what we know for sure. Biggie, Christopher Wallace, aka the Notorious B.I.G., was gunned down on March 9th, 1997. He was just 24 years old. Can you imagine? Now get this. Biggie had just left this music industry party at the Peterson Automotive Museum in LA. He hops into a green Suburban with his crew, and they're riding through the city, minding their business. But when they pull up to a red light at Wilshire and Fairfax, boom, a dark Chevy Impala rolls up. The driver, described as a black man in a blue suit and bow tie, real specific, right? Starts spraying the car. Biggie was hit 4 times, but it was that 4th bullet, the one that tore through his hip and hit his organs, that took him out. He was rushed to Cedars-Sinai, but was pronounced dead at 1:15 a.m. Now let's zoom in on who was also there that night. Puff was in the same convoy, not in the same car, but definitely close by. And here's the thing, he reportedly ran over to Biggie's vehicle right after the shots were fired, so he was there. He saw it go down. He felt the chaos. But despite all that, he's never been officially tied to the But y'all already know, this happened right in the middle of that East Coast versus West Coast beef, where Bad Boy Records, Diddy's label, and Death Row Records were straight up going to war in the media and in the streets, so the timing was suspicious. As for Faith Evans, she wasn't there that night. She had no direct connection to the shooting itself. Still, after Biggie passed, she teamed up with Valletta and filed a lawsuit against the city of LA. They were pointing fingers at the LAPD, claiming dirty cops were involved in the hit. That case, it ended up getting tossed, but again, it made folks wonder how deep this cover-up could go. So, let's get real for a second. To this day, there's been no real justice for Biggie. No charges, no one behind bars, just theories, rumors, and a bunch of silenced whispers. Now here's where it gets spicy. People have always side-eyed Diddy because he benefited a lot from Biggie's death. Like, his whole solo career took off right after. That I'll Be Missing You single, it was a tribute, but it also went diamond and made millions. And Faith stayed real close to Diddy even after Biggie died. She kept working with him, kept him in her life, never publicly questioned him. It was like the whole thing just kept moving like nothing happened. So was Diddy just a loyal friend? Was Faith just trying to survive in the industry? Or were they too close to the fire and chose to stay silent? Because when you look at how it all played out, and the fact that this case is still unsolved, with all the money and power involved, something is not adding up. Do you think Faith was just surviving, or was she knowingly protecting the wrong people? Drop your theories down below, and then make sure you check out this next video, because it goes even deeper.